In the early hours of June 1, 2009, Air France Flight 447 vanished over the Atlantic Ocean. The Airbus A330, carrying 228 people, was en route from Rio de Janeiro to Paris. A routine flight that simply disappeared from radar. No distress call was made. The world awoke to the shocking news. A modern airliner had gone missing in an era of advanced technology. The plane had entered a radar dead zone over the ocean, and expected radio contact never came. As hours passed, hope faded. Something had gone terribly wrong. The disappearance triggered a massive search and rescue operation, captivating the world and raising urgent questions. How could a sophisticated aircraft, flown by experienced pilots, simply vanish? The absence of wreckage or communication fueled speculation and anxiety. The loss was the deadliest in Air France's history, and a blow to aviation's sense of safety. The search for answers would challenge technology, test emotions, and force the industry to confront uncomfortable truths. The journey to uncover what happened to Flight 447 had just begun. The aircraft was an Airbus A330-203, registered FGZCP, a modern, reliable jet in excellent condition. On June 1, 2009, it departed Rio with 216 passengers from 33 countries and 12 crew, including 3 experienced pilots. Captain Marc Dubois, with over 11,000 flying hours, led the crew, assisted by First Officers David Robert and Pierre-Cédric Bonan. The flight path was routine northeast along Brazil's coast, then out over the Atlantic at 35,000 feet. As the plane left radar range, communication relied on radio and satellite systems. The first hours were uneventful, with regular position reports and automated data sent to Air France. But the route crossed the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ, a region infamous for severe storms and turbulence. Pilots are trained to navigate the ITCZ, using weather radar to avoid the worst cells. For the crew of AF 447, this was a known challenge, not an unexpected crisis. Yet, the ITCZ's unpredictability would soon test their skills. The stage was set for a confrontation between man, machine, and nature. What began as a routine flight was about to become a case study in disaster. The next hours would change aviation forever. As Flight 447 neared the ITCZ, the crew prepared for turbulence and icing, standard for this route. They adjusted course to avoid the worst storms, but the ITCZ's volatile weather is notoriously hard to predict. Entering the stormy zone, the Airbus encountered turbulence and supercooled water droplets, conditions that can freeze on contact. The pitot tubes, small sensors measuring airspeed, likely became clogged with ice crystals. Suddenly, airspeed readings turned erratic, confusing the aircraft's computers. The autopilot and autothrottle disengaged, forcing the pilots to fly manually in darkness and turbulence. An alarm sounded, autopilot disconnect. At this moment, the captain was on a rest break, leaving the 2 co-pilots at the controls. They faced a daunting scenario: unreliable instruments, severe weather, and a cascade of warning messages. The loss of airspeed data was the first link in a chain of disaster. Automation had handed control back to the humans, at the worst possible time. The crew now had to rely on training, instinct, and teamwork. The next few minutes would determine the fate of everyone on board. The autopilot's disconnect was a critical turning point. The pilots now faced conflicting airspeed readings, a serious emergency at high altitude. The flight control system switched to alternate law, reducing automated protections. First Officer Bonan, at the controls, instinctively pulled back on the stick, pitching the nose up. At cruising altitude, this maneuver was dangerous. The plane quickly lost speed. Without normal stall protection, the aircraft was vulnerable to pilot error. The A330 climbed steeply, then stalled, its wings no longer generating lift. The correct response was to push the nose down, but confusion reigned in the cockpit. The stall warning sounded, but unreliable data made it erratic and misleading. Disoriented by alarms, darkness, and turbulence, the pilots failed to recognize the stall. Instead of recovery, the nose stayed up, deepening the crisis. The situation was spiraling out of control. Inside the cockpit, confusion and miscommunication took hold. The co-pilots struggled to interpret alarms and erratic instruments. The stall warning, meant to alert them, cut in and out, adding to the chaos. Captain Dubois returned, but found a cockpit in turmoil. The Airbus side sticks aren't linked, so one pilot can't feel the other's inputs. Bonan continued pulling the nose up, but his colleagues didn't realize it. The crew never clearly identified the stall or took decisive action to recover. For nearly 4 minutes, the A330 fell in a deep stall, nose high, losing altitude rapidly. Passengers endured a terrifying, uncontrolled descent in darkness. The aircraft remained intact, but was no longer flying, just falling. The final cockpit recordings reveal a dawning realization, but too late. The crew never regained control. The fate of Flight 447 was sealed. The descent lasted over 4 minutes, ending with a devastating impact on the Atlantic. The plane hit the water belly first at high speed, disintegrating instantly. In the remote ocean, far from radar and shipping lanes, the search began. Debris and bodies were found days later, confirming the crash site but revealing little about the cause. The black boxes, flight data, and cockpit voice recorders were lost in deep, rugged waters. Multiple search efforts over 2 years failed to find them, and hope faded. In April 2011, a fourth search located the wreckage and finally, the black boxes. Despite years underwater, the data was intact. Investigators now had the key to understanding the disaster. The world waited for answers from the depths. The truth was about to surface. The black boxes provided a second-by-second account of Flight 447's final moments. Investigators confirmed the sequence: pitot tube icing, loss of airspeed data, autopilot disconnect, and a fatal stall. The data revealed the human side: confusion, miscommunication, and critical errors in the cockpit. The BEA's final report found no single cause, but a chain of failures. The pilots weren't adequately trained for high-altitude stalls or unreliable airspeed. The non-linked side sticks and confusing stall warnings contributed to the disaster. Automation had failed, but so had human response. The crash exposed a paradox. As planes become more automated, pilots get less practice handling rare emergencies. Technology alone can't guarantee safety. Skilled, prepared humans are essential. Flight 447 became a case study in the limits of automation and the need for better training. The tragedy of Flight 447 forced sweeping changes in aviation. Airlines replaced vulnerable pitot tubes and revamped pilot training, emphasizing manual flying and stall recovery. Simulators now replicate high-altitude stalls, preparing crews for rare but deadly scenarios. Training includes managing the startle effect and improving cockpit communication. The design of side sticks and warning systems came under scrutiny, with a push for clearer, more intuitive interfaces. New rules require longer-lasting black box beacons and real-time data streaming. The search for Flight 447's recorders inspired new technology to ensure future accidents aren't lost to the deep. Every lesson learned was written into new safety standards. The legacy of Flight 447 is a safer sky for all. Air France 447 is a sobering lesson in the limits of technology and the enduring importance of human skill. The disaster was a chain of technical failure, environmental challenge, and human error. It exposed the risks of over-reliance on automation and the need for pilots to remain true aviators. Clear communication and teamwork are vital. Their absence proved fatal. The tragedy led to global reforms, making air travel safer. The story of Flight 447 is a reminder. Every advance in aviation is written in hard-won lessons. The victim's legacy lives on in every safer flight. From the depths of the Atlantic, the industry found a new resolve to never let such a disaster happen again.